How's everyone doing tonight? It's a nice day. We got a very beautiful day. Good evening, everyone. Really happy that you are joining us this evening to discuss a very important issue affecting designers and the design industry. My name is Tracy Moore. Hi. I host this show called Cityline, but today I'm the moderator of this panel discussion. So I want to start with a land acknowledgement, if we could, if you're all settled in. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations, including the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat peoples. Toronto, or Takaranto, has long been a traditional gathering place, and today is home to many diverse peoples from across Turtle Island, including First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. These lands are covered by Treaty 13 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Treaty, an agreement between Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. All those who come to and work here are responsible for honoring these treaties in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. Before we begin tonight's discussion, I want to introduce Gary Power, Vice President and General Manager of Whirlpool Canada, to address the JennAir Disrupting Design Program. So please join me in welcoming Gary.
Hi, everyone. It's always sort of hard public speaking anyways, but following Tracy just makes it even harder. Maybe that's why you got the popcorn. You can just eat popcorn and ignore me for a few minutes. Actually, good evening to everybody. Is the mic okay? Everybody? Okay. First of all, thank you all for coming. It's really fantastic to have such a nice turnout. And I know we've got a lot of people joining us virtually as well, so really appreciate you giving us your time as well. So welcome. And it is a pleasure just being here with all of our friends and our partners and really great to see everyone. It's actually an exciting night. And Tracy, thank you so much for being with us as well. It is, as Tracy alluded to, all about us discussing and actually learning about even more a great need and opportunity in our community and in the interior design industry as well. And that is around fostering and encouraging racial diversity. And it is an exciting night and a meaningful night for all of us. At the JennAir brand, we like to think of our brand as centering around, cutting edge design and disruption. And as a brand and as a company, actually, at Whirlpool, we're really deeply committed to advancing and helping advance in partnership, obviously, with you, the design sector, but also inclusion and diversity. That's one of our corporate values, and it's really, really important to us, as I know it is to our partners here as well this evening. We've actually learned a lot on our brand and as a company in the last several years from many of you, and many of you who are joining us virtually around, inequality of opportunity in the design sector, and unfortunately in many sectors in our environment. And we've learned a lot through even meeting many racialized designers throughout Canada, and it's been great learning for me and for us as a company. And if I think about some of the key learnings that we've had over the last few years around how we can create better opportunities for people, and how we can help improve racial diversity in the interior design industry, a few learnings that came from all of you and many of you joining us virtually is, how do we create better access to education programs? How do we create better access to leadership opportunities? How do we create better access to job opportunities and experience opportunities and mentoring opportunities and so forth? And that actually is what tonight is all about, in tandem with our valued partners here tonight. So tonight, we're hoping to start to bring meaningful change. And tonight, we're all here to introduce the JennAir Disrupting Design Program. And the whole objective of this program with you as partners is to create opportunities for racialized designers in the interior design industry. We hope to break through some structural barriers for Black, Indigenous, and people of color in the industry. And we want to help provide opportunities for study, for work experience, and for leadership experience in the community. So as part of this program, which we do call the JennAir Disrupting Design Program, the most exciting thing that we're happy to announce tonight, amongst many other things, is that in partnership with the Creative School at the Toronto Metropolitan University, TMU, who you'll meet this evening as well, we are announcing the creation of a JennAir Scholars Award. And what this is our commitment to $375,000 in scholarship commitment over 5 years to help support Black, Indigenous, and students of color in the TMU Bachelor of Interior Design Program and planned master's program. In addition, and you'll learn more about this, we've worked very closely with TMU to create, and are great partners with Tridel, who you'll also meet, a paid internship program for racialized design students and a sponsorship program for matching graduates with successful working interior designers. Now, we do know, obviously, these things don't change overnight, and that change takes time, and it actually takes sincerity and a real commitment and a collaborative effort, and that's why we're so grateful to have you all here tonight. That's why JennAir is also establishing what we call a Design Advisory Board. And this board will consist of racialized leaders from the design community. The board will have two objectives. First of all, it will help guide the JennAir Disrupting Design Program focus, both short-term and long-term. And secondly, it'll hold us accountable, me accountable and all of us accountable, for making sure that we're making tangible, meaningful, sincere progress against our objectives. So tonight, if you think about it, I'm very fortunate, and I'm fortunate to be amongst some of the great talented people in the design industry. I can guarantee you, I certainly am not one of them, both in the room and also virtually. And together as a group, we can really make a difference, and we can disrupt design and help shape the industry to be even better than what it is today, so that it reflects the diversity of our community, our clients, and our country. So before I pass over, and I'll maybe see you again for a minute later, I once again want to sincerely thank you, myself, and on behalf of Whirlpool and the JennAir brand, for attending. I greatly appreciate it for a tremendous cause. It's just the right thing to do. And I'd like to introduce now two of our very, very valued partners from the Toronto Metropolitan University. First of all, Charles Falzon, who's the Dean of the Creative School at TMU, as well as Colin Ripley, who's Chair of Interior Design at TMU. Thank you for joining us, and please welcome me in welcoming Charles and Colin.
Well, I must say that what might be just as difficult as following Tracy is following you, Gary. That was really those were really meaningful words. And I am so excited to be here, and we're so excited to see everybody here. So welcome. My name's Charles Falzon. I'm Dean of the Creative School, which is a faculty at TMU that happens to be the home of some of Canada's leading programs and schools in the creative sector and creative industries. But none are as formidable as this one here, the interior design. So that's Colin at the top, and that's little me in smaller, bold, not quite as bold. And I think that's the right order. This faculty has been a game changer, and the School of Interior Design has been a game changer for many years without even realizing it. How are we game changers? We're game changers because we are nurturing future leaders and future change makers. That's our little contribution. And when you think about disruptive design, you kind of sometimes I ask myself the question, I used to, is that not weird? Like, shouldn't design automatically be by nature disruptive, right? Aren't creative people innovators and thinking out of the box? The answer is unfortunately not always. And I think that that is why, as a school, as a faculty, and with our partners, we are really committed to helping the field think beyond its own automatic day-to-day existence. Now, why is equity and inclusion important? That because equity and inclusion is the right thing, and we are all as a society contributing to make the world a better place. I happen to have a predisposition that feels that believes that one of the best things we can do in equity and inclusion is to be participants in education, and is to be investing in opportunities for young people who are growing and becoming the disruptors of tomorrow. And I am so thrilled that JennAir has agreed with that and believes in it so wholeheartedly. And I am so grateful to everybody here, but particularly to our partners at JennAir. So thank you, and I will pass it on to Colin.
Thank you, Charles. And thank you to JennAir, of course, for this amazing scholarship and sponsorship. And I want to say thank you as well to JennAir for giving us this term of disrupting design. Because those of you who've known me for a while, hi Val, will know that disruption is something that I take very dear to my heart. Disruption is a really important thing. It's important, as Charles said, disruption is something that is clear to design. The designers are always trying to be disruptive, but unfortunately, the design industry sometimes gets a bit staid. Our methods start to be the same. We start to work according to the tried and true. And every once in a while, we need to disrupt that same old, in order to move forward into a better world, right? So disruption, it's causing a rupture, right? This is not a gentle thing. This is a difficult thing. It's something that not everybody's going to be happy about, but it's something that is absolutely necessary in order for us to move to a world of equity, right? A world in which we all feel welcome, and in a world in which we do better work as designers. So apologies to our 4 winners tonight that I have the great pleasure to announce, but this is on your shoulders, guys. Right? You're going to have to figure this out because we need new tools. And, as the great American writer Audre Lorde said, the master's house will not be dismantled with the master's tools. We need to discover the new tools that will take us into the next generation of interior design and the next generation of design, period. And the next generation of how we live as humans in this world. And by the way, that's the value of universities. So congratulations to our winners. So I'll just give you their names. We have 2 students who've won in-course scholarships for work that they've been doing within our program, and those are Jia Kim and Michelle Zhu. So I'm not going to embarrass them by asking them to put up their hands or announce themselves, but they're here. And then we have two winners of our JennAir Scholars positions, let's call them scholarships, awards, which are their first-year students, and they get this amount of money for 4 years as they continue through our program, which is incredible, absolutely incredible. So Nader Al-Fahad, and Kiana Woolner. So congratulations. So once again, before I leave, I'll just say thank you again to JennAir. Thank you to everyone for coming. And guys, you know, I made this joke about it being a weight on your shoulders, but really there's an incredible future in store for you here. So make the best of this and we'll help you along the way. And thank you.
Congratulations again to the winners. And of course, you will be supported, right, Colin? They will get the support that they need to thrive and do the disrupting that needs to happen in this industry. So a big thank you to Colin and Charles for that. Now, I don't need to tell you this, but the past few years have sparked significant cultural change and required everyone, including industries, to reflect and seek ways to contribute to positive change and create a more inclusive and equitable country. As Gary mentioned, a large part of the JennAir brand's work has been about understanding how DE&I issues impact all parts of the design industry. During our time together, we're going to unpack these issues, yes we are, ladies and gentlemen, and their impact and explore the ways in which the JennAir Disrupting Design Program addresses them through 3 topic areas selected for this evening. So we are going to look at the barriers to racialized youth studying interior design, the discourse of decolonizing design education, and how the JennAir Disrupting Design Program supports addressing them. We are going to discuss the challenges of current HR and hiring practices in the design sector, how design firms can support addressing such challenges, and how the JennAir Disrupting Design Program contributes to this aim. And we're going to explore how the design industry and the design industry associations, what they can do to diversify leadership, and how disrupting design is supporting inclusion strategically by engaging racialized designers. There's a lot of work to do. So we're going to take a few minutes for introductions. We're going to do a panel discussion for 30 minutes. We're going to finish with a Q&A for 15 minutes. And so keep your questions. If you have questions, we do want to get to your questions and we'll get to them after our conversation. We're going to be talking with some fantastic people right now, some amazing panelists, but I will get to your questions at the end of our chitty chat. So to unpack these topics, we've assembled a panel of leaders, champions, and advocates for DE&I in the design industry. These people are also members of the advisory board for Disrupting Design Program. I'm very pleased to introduce Natalie Ramtahal. Give her a big round of applause while I brag about her. Natalie is the Manager of Administration and Equity in the School of Interior Design at the Creative School at Toronto Metropolitan University. Natalie is a PhD, thank you very much, student in the Joint Communication and Culture program at York University and TMU. She has worked in post-secondary education, research, policy, and equity and community inclusion for over 15 years. Welcome. Good to have you.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Ian Ralston is the founder. Give him a round of applause. Ian. The founder of Decanthropy, an equity design consultancy that develops equity initiatives for brands, spaces, and built environments that make change immediate, effective, and measurable. As a thought leader, multi-sector designer, speaker, and current president of the Interior Designers Association of Canada, which is the national advocacy body for the profession. Yeah, this guy's a big shot. Yes. He encourages relying on one's sense of humanity to inform the practice of design, and I love that. Welcome, Ian. Brian Porter, come on up here. Some love. Brian Porter hails from 6 nations of the Grand River. He has been a business leader for many years, designing and overseeing the construction of projects for First Nation communities across Canada and the United States. He has demonstrated success in designing culturally appropriate projects for these communities and has worked to maximize the participation of First Nation skills and trades. Welcome, Brian. Good to have you. So the way this is going to work, we're going to do 3 rounds. Everyone will have an opportunity to answer the questions that I'm throwing out there, and we'll go down through the panel, but honestly, feel like get unruly if you want.
We've had wine now, so.
Yes, I live for a little unruliness. So if you hear something and you want to jump in, you can jump in. I mean, politely, of course, we're Canadians, okay. To kick us off, I'm going to start with Natalie, who currently sits at TMU and who will help to paint a picture of the DE&I issues affecting design education. So Natalie, you know this, there's currently no published data on the number of racialized designers in Canada, but TMU reports significant underrepresentation in the university published the 2019 Student Diversity Self-ID report in 2019. So that data showed that the School of Interior Design was experiencing low representation of Indigenous, Black, and South Asian students. Given this reported underrepresentation, can you tell us about the barriers that prevent racialized youth from studying interior design?
Yes. But I'll start with this. I'm going to list a couple, but this is just the starting point when it comes to barriers. And they work in tandem. They work connectedly with one another. So when we're looking at race, we also need to look at gender. We also need to look at gender identity. Are you trans? Are you non-binary? These things all impact. So I wanted to preface this conversation with that first. I'm only going to be addressing 3 of them here. And the first, as we have heard already, is financial. So financial barriers is one of the biggest ones. So we often look to racialized students as like, hey, they just need to get good grades. We actually have the grades. We have the grades, we have the wherewithal, and we have the desire to do well. It's money that is our biggest barrier. Money and also having responsibilities at home presents a challenge. We often have to take on jobs when we get to school. And yeah, it may be a job for one student, but it could potentially be multiple jobs, and volunteer, and work at home. And maybe we have to share a computer with like 5 other family members, So that's the first and foremost that I'll mention. The second is familial sort of support. So as a person of color, obviously, and as a child of immigrants, interior design wasn't an option. Like, this is not a thing that it was encouraged by my family. We were supposed to be doctors and lawyers and engineers. We weren't going into design. Design wasn't a real thing that we could do. It wasn't lucrative. It wasn't something that could help advance your family in wealth and intergenerational wealth. The other thing is representation. If you don't see people like you in the world, you're not going to see yourself in those roles. And I'm going to use ballet as an example here because I know there's some ballet people in the audience. So Misty Copeland, if you know her, is a Black ballerina in the States. She signed with ABT as one of the first premier Black ballerinas. And for people who are brown and Black and racialized, we hadn't seen anyone like her ever before. So to have someone in the industry, someone who looked beautiful, was amazing on stage, was something you could aspire to, right? If you don't have that representation, if you don't see people like you, you're like, that's not for me. I'm not going to do that thing. So those are my 3.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent points. And just the representation point, I think that we can't overestimate, we can't say how important that is.
Absolutely.
The importance is huge. If you actually don't see yourself in those spaces, it's not even a thought that crosses your mind.
Nope.
So really good there. We're going to move on now, unless somebody wanted to jump in. No? I thought somebody was going to say something. Okay. Once students graduate from design school, they enter industry and professional practice. So here, the challenges experienced by racialized students are reflected in the experiences of racialized designers working as professionals in the design sector. So I'm going to go to Ian next, because I want to talk about the challenges that current hiring and HR practices in the design industry. What kind of barriers are there? Like, what are these challenges? How do they affect racialized designers and the industry?
So this is a really, really big topic. I'm going to settle in on one point around the practices themselves in terms of hiring are not diverse. There's usually one point of access to a company, whether it's the HR director or the hiring committee. Oftentimes those committees are not diverse. They do not necessarily understand why they are hiring outside of the production element of bringing in a person to the firm. So there needs to be a fundamental shift in terms of being intentional about why you're hiring and what you are hiring an individual into, in terms of how they're going to be supporting the culture within a company to produce the thing that they are producing. And so we have to work on changing the systems of hiring. We do have some conversations around perhaps having portfolio-less interviews, perhaps bring individuals in and have a more immersive experience where you are problem solving with individuals at the firm, and specifically leaders in the firm, so that you're reducing the gap between leaders and potential employees, so that there's an opportunity to be engaged in problem solving, understanding that the cultural nuances beyond just the task that you're being hired to do. So we need to fundamentally rethink what hiring looks like.
Because once you get in the door, what I find is I open the door and then folks come in and then they're eaten alive.
Absolutely.
It's not a safe place to thrive.
No, and there's a disconnect between what we are seeing now in our educational system in being accepted and sort of standing and bringing your authentic self to the table. There's a disconnect between what happens then in the professional realm, where there is still, and I think we were talking a little earlier, if you Google what an interior designer looks like today, I'm going to let you see the images that come back. They often don't look like someone like me. So there's a fundamental sort of image that we've built around what a designer is, and we're oftentimes hiring that unconsciously. So we have to do better at understanding those nuances that are really informing our decision.
Absolutely. Last thing I'm going to say about that, though, is like in terms of sponsorship and mentorship, so many times when you are bringing folks in that are younger than you, what do you say to yourself? You say, oh my gosh, I see myself in you. Come in. I see myself in you. If no one that looks like you is in the door, who are they seeing that reminds them of themselves? They're seeing themselves reflected back. So there's a vicious cycle happening where that doesn't seem to change, which is why, Ian, you're saying be intentional. Maybe look in the places you weren't looking before. Maybe choose the people that you weren't considering before, but it has to be an intentional flip.
But also those that are hiring, they need to be diverse as well, so that you can have a different perspective.
Yeah.
I never thought of that. I never wanted to see anybody that looked like me.
Well, you broke the mold.
You're a good-looking man.
I was looking for somebody different than me. But anyway.
Well, that's good. I mean, if that's your instinct, I don't feel like that is the general human instinct. It's like, what is like me? Bring more of that to me. We're all like these narcissists. Okay, so the final piece of the puzzle comes with looking at industry associations and boards. These are the spaces that designers occupy and the platforms through which they influence the sector. Brian will start by giving us a sense of the current state of these spaces. So what do the boards of industry associations in the design sector currently look like? And what do you think they should look like?
I'm at the risk of oversimplifying. I wrote down 3 words, I think, that talk about what they look like. I see protectionism, I see uncertainty, and I see, excuse me, avoidance of risk. That's what when I think about some of the boards, not all of them, but a lot of them, I think they have a lot of those traits. And when I think about what they should look like, you know, the words that spring to mind to me are innovation, assertiveness, and excuse me, probably most important, belief, right? Because I got one here.
Oh, you got your water?
Yeah, because
Don't
if you
even get off that stool, you'll never get on.
because I think if you don't believe that diversity is going to make your product better, if you don't believe that diversity is going to include your bottom line, if you don't believe that diversity is going to make your work environment more enjoyable, then like don't do it, right? You have to have the belief, I think.
I also think inertia is a challenge. When an issue seems so big, you're paralyzed by it. And so we have to be really strategic about how we are going to go about addressing the issues that we have the opportunity to address. And so one quick item, we're going to do some work with a few boards in the US next week. And there's this challenge with, like, so Ian, we have bylaws, we have terms, we have all these things that govern what we're supposed to do. And so you have to create a new system. It's the only way. So create an opportunity for a short-term position where you allow individuals to come in and perhaps have oversight over specific areas that allow you then to gain that perspective, have that interaction, but also offer that experience to an individual that you have not often interacted with. But we have to get strategic and we have to do things differently. Because the system's in place doesn't mean we have to keep doing the same things. We all have knowledge now that we can shift things. We can have better conversations and we can do things differently. So let's do that.
Good. Okay, time for round two. Ding, ding, ding. So I'm going to go back to Natalie now. Let's talk about this whole concept of decolonizing design education. What does that mean? What does decolonizing design education entail? How can it be done? All these lighthearted questions, Natalie.
I know. I get the big bangers, right? You work in education, you must know. No, but it really means okay, so this is definitely a loaded one, but I think it means looking at things with intentionality, understanding that our system is built on colonialism and colonization, and that includes the educational system. So what that means from our perspective is looking at what we're teaching. Why are we teaching it? Who are we teaching it to? Who is teaching the classes? What's included in the syllabus? It is an intentional look at why we're doing what we're doing. And I really want to liken this to the idea of, like, if I was learning music, am I only learning Mozart, Beethoven, and Tchaikovsky? Because that is a very limited way of looking at the world. There's a whole world of music happening outside of us, right? We can learn music in a different language, in different genres, for different purposes even. But if we're only looking at 3 composers, then we're not looking at the world of music at all. And that sets our students up for failure in lots of ways because their scope is limited. And when they have to go out and view the world and incorporate their experience into the world, they have none. So this is to their benefit as well. So that is my answer.
Good. Very good answer. I like that. Thank you, Natalie. Okay, Ian, what about creating space for racialized designers to have more job and leadership opportunities? What can design leaders and firms do to welcome more diverse talent and leadership in a way that is not tokenistic? Because we've kind of touched on it,
Right.
but how do you fix that idea of having, the sole token and nothing else has changed? You just have a person of color in the space.
Right. So I'm going to be really real with, this doesn't go outside of this room.
Oh, it's totally being broadcast globally. Yes. Go ahead. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We want it real.
we want
Or what's
solid.
the point of having the conversation?
Right.
Yeah.
I think we have to acknowledge that we are in a system that promotes being exclusive. That there's, again, this idea that we want to be in sort of the know, in the right sort of circles. And I think what we are trying to reflect doesn't really allow us to experience the richness of human difference that is at our fingertips. And so we need to redefine what the value of the individuals that we are bringing to our organizations, what that actually represents for us. And so again, we've mentioned being intentional. We have to understand that there should be a plan. Why do you want this diversity? Are you diverse? In yourself? What is the value of this difference? Do you value difference? How are your structures? How is your culture as an organization? How is it supporting these things that you say you want? And so if you haven't done the work first as an organization, I offer to say that then you're not ready. So let's do some work. We can do this work to prepare so that when those who are diverse show up, they don't leave in 2 years because they felt that they were lied to, right? Because you check the box and you're in the door, but they don't feel comfortable. They don't see themselves represented in any of the executive leadership, executive committees, and decision makings. There's a way that we need to sponsor difference into our organizations in a way that actually feeds a more strategic position.
Yep. Well said. Thank you, Ian. Okay, Brian, I want to take a look at the broader landscape once again with you. What can design boards and industry associations do to welcome more diverse talent and leadership in a way that isn't tokenistic?
Well, I think the answer can never be nothing. I think there's lots of things that associations can do, and I would promote a system that's fluid and that's organic. And I want to give you a couple of examples of that. I think are pretty tangible, right? Like one thing I think you can do is you can take a look at your calendar and see how many holidays are based around certain traditions, customs that might not necessarily welcome foreign or Indigenous students. So take a look at that. And I think the other thing is you don't have to get it right all at once either. I think you can have fluid systems, again, that are organic. One of the groups that I'm associated with is the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada. And what they did is they set up an Indigenous task force that's been around for a couple of years now. So we meet with a certain mandate, but I think there will be a day will come when the board of directors will make space for a designate from that task force to be a full board member, right? So that's something I think they can do that's not threatening. You don't have to overregulate it. You just set the task force up, let them make their own rules, and they'll find a way to get people on board that are a good fit for the board. Just kind of let it happen. Don't carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, but you do have to get started somehow.
And do you think once it's not overly regulated, do you think the flow will go in that direction?
Yeah, I think right now a lot of people are trying to come up with all the answers, and you don't have to put that weight on your shoulders. I think there are simple steps that you can take to kind of get started and just kind of let these things happen more organically, more intuitively. But you have to start to make those first steps and see where the problems are in your organization. Something as simple as a calendar, I think, is a good one. I mean, I don't know how we ended up with 12 months when we have 13 moons, but and 28 days in each moon cycle. But if you take a look at some of the cultural calendars that some of the First Nations have, it's really about a way of living that's really kind of more in tune with its environment and excuse me, the cycles of the calendar year.
Yeah. That I like the whole idea of sort of leading with a little bit of grace, because these things are not going to be solved in a conversation or 50 conversations or 100 conversations or a year or 2 years. And none of us are going to do it perfectly. So I think it's nice to bite off what you can chew and keep moving forward. This whole idea of doing something and then moving in a certain direction, but having some grace, knowing that we're all going to fumble our way forward. I think there's something to be said for that.
I also want to say that we have to take the fear out of it.
Yeah.
I know that we're living in a time where you say the wrong thing once and it's over.
TikTok is a scary place.
It is a scary place. And not even that, if you said something 10 years ago
Yes.
and someone found it,
Yes.
it's a scarier place. I think we have to be intentional. We that are in the room, we have to set the standard for the communication.
Yeah.
And to not be so quick to discount someone's point of view that maybe not align with our own. Let's just get back to having some real human conversations so that we can get through the noise and really start getting to real solutions.
Totally.
Yeah, we have to let ourselves be more vulnerable, right?
Absolutely.
And make mistakes.
Yeah.
To be allowed
people
to make mistakes.
We used to do that.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
used to make mistakes.
Yes. Mistakes happen. You get called out, you fix them, you try and do better. That's all we can do, right? Thank you for that, team. Let's go to round 3. Back to Miss Natalie. Okay, so how does disrupting design contribute to supporting belonging, addressing barriers, and promoting authentic engagement for racialized design students?
I mean, it attacks the first thing, which is the financial barrier.
Yeah.
right? Having students have money and not have to work those 10 jobs or whatever they're doing, and providing them with a network. They now have each other. They are in this space. They have their potential future bosses and colleagues in this very room. I think just being connected to the industry from the beginning also steps them into a world that they're hoping to belong to. So we don't necessarily, people who have come here from other countries, particularly new immigrants, don't have the connections that other people do. So they are now in a position where they can make those connections and take those steps and introduce themselves and be part of communities that they may not have had the opportunity to before.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thanks, Natalie. Okay, over to you, Ian. Looking at the industry, how does disrupting design contribute to supporting better hiring and HR practices?
So I think first and foremost, to be able to be in a position that your company is, to say that this is an issue that matters, and this is an issue that we are going to first take our time to understand, get the right people involved to make sure that we're getting the right perspectives. That signals out to the industry that, oh, okay, this isn't just another sort of company who's dabbling, but here is a leader that is trying to really establish something that is unique. So I think that the program is already raising sort of the level of care, because statements aren't enough, conversations aren't enough. There needs to be, again, real strategic actions that need to be put in place and put front and center so that the industry can see. So I'm hoping it's a little bit of that stone soup analogy, that you put another stone in, someone will come bring a carrot and some potatoes, and soon, hopefully, we're going to have a stew that we're all enjoying. And so I think that is the biggest opportunity.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Ian. Brian. Okay, let's hear from you one last time. How does disrupting design contribute to supporting more diversity on boards and industry associations and through engagement with racialized designers and communities?
Well, this is the launch, right? And we've already impacted 4 lives, right? One of the things that I was kind of worried about with getting on this board was, I wanted there to be measurable results, something tangible. And it seems like all we really had to do was ask the right people, right? So I think what we need to do, I think we need to be the biggest conduit possible. I think we need to answer questions like, how can we help? Who can we introduce you to? Who can we counsel? We just need to keep being inquisitive, keep asking those questions, because I think industry is starting to get there, as we've seen tonight. There are a lot of people that are willing to help. They just want to see a group that gets it, that's responsible, that can deliver. So, I hope to be a part of that group.
I think we can all sort of.
You already are.
Yeah, we can attest to, I think, some conversations that we've had around not wanting to be involved in another initiative if it wasn't going to be meaningful.
Right.
And so I think we've sort of found a place, Byron, Yasmin, Golnar, we have found an entity that is willing to do the work without the flashing lights and the sort of quick solutions to actually move the conversation into action. And nothing says action like $375,000.
Very true. I got a little bit of time to play with, right? So I just want to ask you, I want to ask all 3 of you what makes you very hopeful right now. Because, we like to stew in the doom and gloom, but I also want to know if there are things right now that you're looking at that are, beyond the $375,000. If there are things right now that you're looking at that are making you feel hopeful about the future and, having a more inclusive environment in design. How about you, Natalie?
I think 2020 really set the precedent. Black Lives Matter changed everything. Yeah. So I think people had to confront the ugly parts of society, but also themselves. And in doing that, it's like there was a racial reckoning. Like, what do we do now? Like, we have seen what happens. We know what we're a part of. How can we take steps to fixing it? And I feel like large corporations and educational institutions have had to really like do a self-analysis, a 360 review, if you will. TMU is currently under this. So, yeah, I think we've had to really have honest conversations and really confront the ugly parts of us. And doing that means that we actually had to take steps to change things. So I feel like we're in an amazing place right now where people are starting to see and understand how they can take steps to make significant changes.
Good. Brian, Ian?
Yeah, I've noticed a palpable change in the last couple of years where, at least in the projects that I'm working on, there's a lot more, excuse me, sincerity on the other side of the table. There's more mutual respect. There's more camaraderie. There's more fun. A lot of the projects that we're working on have interdisciplinary teams, and I get a seat beside the arborist and the landscape architect and the civil engineer, and we're all kind of sitting around a table. It's not like the old days where an architect came in with some sort of grandiose vision and parachuted it into a community. A lot of the solutions are a lot more integrated. I think they think more about the landscape, about all of our relations. So that's what makes me hopeful.
Good.
I would simply add, we have an opportunity to acknowledge each other's humanity. I think that's what this sort of sliver in time has offered us, an opportunity to look at our own sense of humanity and to try to see that in others. And so I'm hopeful that we have a generation, we have individuals within this room that are connected to loved ones, institutions, places, other people, that we can then continue this sort of idea of acknowledging each other. And I sort of boiled this effort down to exactly that. You are acknowledging that design has a place for difference and the richness of that human difference, and to actually create opportunities for that to happen in a meaningful way. So I encourage us, let's keep acknowledging our humanity and seeing ourselves in each other.
Beautiful. And I would say, it's very easy to go down a spiral of all of the things that need to change and all the things that are going wrong, but there are always the most beautiful moments of humanity sprinkled throughout all of that. So we definitely have to acknowledge and pay attention to that as well. So thanks to all of you. That was fantastic. Was that not fantastic? Great, thoughtful answers. Those were not light questions, so thank you for that. Thank you for that. This concludes the discussion portion, but I want to get your questions if you have any. And I know there are folks that have joined virtually. There are many folks here. Is there anyone that would like to ask a question here live before I check out if we have anyone virtually that wants to ask something? And if you do, we'll get a mic out to you. Don't be shy. A lot was said. We talked about a lot. Yes. So let's get a mic over to her.
Oh, Lord.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, this was a mistake. So Ian, I believe you mentioned sort of in the conversation around tokenism, it's let's call it easy to get people in the door. You say you have a more diverse hiring panel. You sort of are more focused on sort of the core skills and experience, less so on, maybe the intangibles that would influence bias. So, but what I kind of twigged on was once they're in, how do you keep them in? If you were to say one thing that a corporate entity could work on to keep diverse talent engaged and supported, what would be that one thing?
You have to look at yourself. We can't do anything outwardly before we do it internally. And so that's where the conversation starts. And it's important for entities to just slow down for a second. I know we're wired to do things really quickly. We want to get it over with. But this work is slow. I call it slow, good work. And so those in leadership have to just sort of step back and really consider, what do we need to do here? And without doing that work, I will tell you, you will inevitably fail. This isn't this topic isn't new. We've been doing this work for, I think there was a great book, Pamela Newkirk, it's called Diversity, Inc. We've spent billions of dollars on diversity and have moved the needle very little. And so we have to just sort of slow down for a second and be intentional about why we want to do this work. There's one last thing I'll say quickly. We used to have the luxury of separating the idea of I just want to do business to do business, whatever service I'm going to give, product I'm going to design. I just want to do that, make some money, and retire. We don't live in that world anymore. Everything that we do is connected to a social issue, an environmental issue. We're humans, we're citizens in this thing called life, and we are interconnected, whether we want to admit it or not. But I'm hoping that leadership elevates to the point where we start thinking dimensionally about those interconnections and how we can support it in meaningful ways.
I love that answer. The only thing I would add to that, and I'm in a different industry, but check in with that person. Because I think a lot of times we have so much bias that we're not even thinking about what might be happening in their world. And checking in with them, it's okay if you don't know, but like, how's it going? Are people being okay with you? Are things being said? Do you like the flow? Like, all those things I think are valid and help people at least have a space to vocalize if they're not feeling safe in the space or if they're feeling like this is just not working. But really good question. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Anything virtually? Is it Iman?
Yep, that's right. And we have our first question from our online audience here. And this is for anybody who'd like to jump in here first. So the first question here is, what roadblocks prevent progress in promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion in the industry? And how can we overcome these roadblocks?
It's a big question. Who wants to take that? What are the big roadblocks? We've talked about some of them. Maybe you want to reiterate.
I think I'll start with believing that the roadblocks exist and understanding, I said this actually yesterday, that just because we've had an experience, that doesn't mean that we understand everybody else's experience. So when people tell you, I've had this terrible experience, we need to understand that that's their truth, right? So giving credit to people who have experiences that are different than our own and understanding that these are realities for them. So believing the truths that they're telling us. And then from there, we can understand how to develop solutions in conversation with them.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, just understanding that you don't know. You might not know. You don't know what other people's walk is like. You just don't know. Yeah. Great answer. Anyone else in-house want to throw a question out there to these three super intelligent, vulnerable, fantastic, lovely, beautiful people? No. Iman, anyone virtually? She's like, yes, I do.
Yes, lots of great questions coming in online.
Okay.
This second question here was specifically for Brian. And it was just reflecting on Brian talking about how change is intuitive. This question specifically was looking for clarification on that, Brian. They said intuition can mean so many things. So they were curious to know what business techniques would be useful for navigating these topics and promoting DE&I.
I think one's kind of old, right? It's like putting yourself in the other person's shoes, I think. Some of the requests I get when I first hear them, they sound kind of ridiculous, right? Well, you really want to see your kid run the cross-country race? And then I kind of think about it. So yeah, why not, right? Put your 40 hours in, go watch them race, go see a soccer game. Like I think, we just kind of become conditioned to think that everybody has to have our same work ethic and our same values, but really to try and be a little bit more empathetic, I think is good.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're learning this sort of term around your worldview. There's great information now that is sharing that our brains are completely formed differently from culture to culture. And so we literally don't see the world the same way. So we have to find ways that we can understand each other's worldview and create opportunities to do life better. Because we're all just lifing. Like that's all this is. Everyone's just trying to do what they have to do to take care of what's important to them. And I think part of working, part of addressing inequity is doing that. It's just how can we just do life better together?
Yeah, fair point. Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. My question is, hi, Ian.
What's up, girl?
My question is, how do you encourage entities and corporations to stay the course? Because many people, because as you said, a lot of this awakening happened within 2 years. So a lot of people are putting out their best efforts, putting out their groups, putting out their DEI initiatives and their spoken terms, speaking words, but they don't necessarily see results after 2 months. Even though this is systematic and it's been an issue for hundreds of years, how do you encourage people to stay the course? What are they looking for?
So we position with Lycanthropy, there's a term that we use all the time, it's structural equity. You actually have to build this into every aspect of your organization so that you can understand what this thing looks like at day one and what it's going to look like in 10 years. So that you can understand where you're going to have moments where you're going to need to gather energy to get things moving, or where you need to sort of contemplate, slow down, shift gears. There just needs to be a more strategic approach. I was talking to one individual last week, and this happens a lot in design. If there's an issue with DE&I, we, within our firms, within our entities, we cobble together committees and we ask questions. If you had a financial issue in your firm, you would not cobble together your designers around to solve that issue. You would go to an expert. So go to an expert, let's do the strategic work, and make sure that we are giving you at least a pathway to give you the best shot at really making change real.
I kind of think there are lots of diamonds out there, you know, that could, some of the pressures that we're all under, it makes us tougher, makes us more innovative. Like in the streets of Toronto, there's tons of them out there. And I think you just kind of have to keep looking, keep polishing, and you'll find good people.
I think also, I just want to say that part of it is also it's a mind shift on the part of the corporation to not see it as people knocking on the door saying, let me in. It's, this will make my business better. There's something, you know, it's not a favor being given. And hopefully that kind of shift can happen at the corporate level. So there's an understanding that actually we need to do this to create a robust business model. Like we need all these flavors and people coming from diverse places so that we are creating a product that is going to be globally phenomenal, right? That's what we contribute. That's what folks contribute. So it's hard to get that buy-in, but I think part of it is about getting that buy-in as well. But very good, really good question. Yeah, I like that.
Great.
You're disproving a theory that I learned at school.
Uh-oh.
They taught us that less is more, and now you're telling me that more is more.
More is more.
Yeah.
More is more, baby. Iman, you want to throw another one out? Do I have time? I got a minute. He says I have a minute.
Okay, perfect. So this question rewinds to earlier in our conversation. It's for Ian specifically. And it was when we were discussing this idea of fear of making mistakes in the space. Someone was wondering how we manage cancel culture and how we can navigate cancel culture to do better DE&I work.
Lord.
Another big question.
So
I'm scared of that one.
it's a wonderful question, a little unfair, but it's a great question. I think we have the ability with the circles, with the individuals that we're connected to create spaces that we can have these conversations. Lay some ground rules. We do some work where we identify that there needs to be some transparency, honesty, and care. You don't know me, but you have to care about me because I am the same as you when it boils down to everything, when you boil everything down. And so trying to set parameters for discussions are important so that people feel at least that they have a shot at being safe. And then when they don't feel safe, they can remind you, it's like, oh no, wait a second, we agreed that we were gonna do this. So I think we have to do that corporately. Again, it comes back to being intentional of how we are going about these conversations, and literally have to be strong enough to just shut out the world. Let's create a new culture. Forget cancel culture, let's just create a new one. It doesn't work for us, so let's just create a new one.
But we can agree that some stuff has to come down, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And those things can only come down when we're having these vulnerable conversations. Because I need to know that, like, you really don't want to do this work. I've had people say that. I've done enough. I've given it to a scholarship. I did a statement. We've done some volunteering. Is that not enough? The answer is no. But I have to tell you why it's not enough, right? And you at least have to be receptive enough to understand why it's not enough. And what the challenges are for me and other individuals that don't have the same access perhaps that others do. Because there's a whole story behind that, right?
Great. I think I'll probably have to wrap it up now, but really good questions. Thank you to the folks that are watching online. And a big thank you to our panelists. You were fantastic. Holy hot seat. So we hope that this discussion has sparked more insights for us to better understand DE&I issues in the design sector and how we can learn from the stories of racialized designers, from their cultures to their struggles, and act accordingly. And of course, this is one conversation. It's the beginning. It's a start. One of the things that you heard from Brian and the rest of the panel was the importance of change makers, the need to have advocates within the industry to help achieve the Disrupting Design Program mission. Tonight, we are thrilled to announce a collaboration with Tridel. As you all know, Tridel is Canada's leader in sustainable condominium living. I'm happy to welcome Jim Ritchie, CEO and President of Tridel, to say a few words. Come on up.
Well, Tracy, thank you so much. Also, I really enjoyed that. Listen, I was told already to stick to the script. I've already messed that up. The first thing I do is I blow the script. But Natalie, Ian, and Brian, thank you so much for that. I agree, we're all on a journey. Some of us a little further advanced, some of us a long way to go. But we're really happy to be part of that conversation. Hopefully we can help affect some change. All right, I'll get to this script and do this properly. I got a few minutes. So we're definitely excited to be at this important event to support bringing progress to the design industry by removing barriers for unrepresented designers. So I can tell you that Tridel is known to be a disruptor within our own industry, and I think we're all in good company with this partnership. So it's an honor to be announced as the first industry partner for JennAir's Disrupting Design Program. And this alliance with JennAir, TMU, and Tridel showcases three innovative organizations that can work together and change systemic inequities that absolutely exist. Clearly, we know our industry needs to reflect the wonderfully diverse communities that we and all of us serve in the Greater Toronto Area. So when Whirlpool, and thank you, Gary, first introduced the program, we knew immediately there was alignment between the organization. That was the very easy first step. So with JennAir's belief in fearlessly driving progress, TMU's novel way of thinking and creating, and we've got examples of that this evening, and thank you for that, and our own promise of being, as you can see on that logo, built for life, we can leverage our collective power to make a significant impact in fostering diversity in design. So as a home builder, and that's what we do, we believe in advancing the industry and influencing the lives of those just beyond the products of that we create by inspiring a new generation of designers whose diversity of thought and imagination and disruption, as I've learned tonight, will take us to new heights. And for us, and certainly, in my opinion, it's just not a moral, ethical imperative. It really is a business imperative. Now, we at Tridel have seen this impact firsthand in our business through our work in community economic development, in the revitalization of neighborhoods, in creating connections with our network of trades and suppliers through something we call Partners in Community, and supporting unrepresented youth entering careers in construction through something we called and control the Bolt Foundation. So, well, I'll tell you what we have learned from that is that, the talent is universal, but the opportunity is not. And I think we've got an opportunity to make a change there, certainly with everybody here this evening. So as your first industry partner, Gary, Tridel will support the JennAir Disrupting Design Program in a number of ways. We're going to look to share this opportunity within our network, employ graduates, and support their ongoing development. And we'll leverage our influence as an industry leader to attract more partners to the program and dedicate experienced employees to support and mentor program participants. And as we grow this alliance, we'll continue to look for new ways to break down barriers in training, in education, job opportunities for certainly members of unrepresented groups. So we really appreciate the opportunity to be part of this disruption and discussion, and we look forward to making it work and get this journey underway. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Jim. Greatly appreciated. And I really appreciate you sharing that commitment on behalf of Tridel. You know, it's actually really great, even some of the things Jim spoke about, to see some meaningful change actually already taking place. And I would encourage, you know, all of us here, myself included, to continue to do more and make sure it's meaningful and sincere and sustainable. One of the things that I would like to let you know that all of us have a role to play, and after the event this evening, you'll actually all receive, including those who are joining us virtually, an email just with more information on how you can help and be part of this groundbreaking program. It's so important. You know, as I learned an awful lot myself this evening, so it's been a great privilege and honor. A couple of words stuck with me that many folks talked about disruption being good. I know, Colin, that was one of your main themes. And so the next time my wife calls me disruptive, I'm going to say I've heard 30 people say it's good. But the other thing that, Tracy, you emphasized right up front, and our lovely panel, is around not things being a token and making them more sustainable and actually meaningful. And you know, I can assure you that I know all of you are, and certainly on behalf of the great folks at Whirlpool, we're very committed to making sure this is a success in a really tangible way. I will commit to everybody here tonight, and many of you are part of the team, that we will continue to keep all of you engaged, involved, learn from all of you, get input and work together, and we will commit the JennAir team to have a similar event and activity 1 year from now, where we can give a full, transparent update to everybody in terms of the progress that's been made and how we continue to get it better every single year. I'd just like to wrap up with a few things. First of all, and this one isn't even in the script, but I'd like to thank, you know, anytime an event like this happens, my own team or our own team at Whirlpool, I'd like to thank you sincerely for all the great months of work you put into this. Of course, all the staff, John Cirillo, and all the folks here, and Tracy, it was a privilege having you here. Just an amazing job hosting us and moderating, and to our panelists, it was just so insightful. So thank you so much for being involved. And of course, you know, our good friends and partners with TMU and Tridel, you know, anytime you have partners, all you can really ask for is that you have people who are supportive, who really want to do the right things for the right reasons, and who just want to collaborate and do all the right things, and that there's great mutual trust and respect. So sincerely appreciated, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. And once again, for everybody here and everybody online, thank you for your time. Greatly appreciated. And I guess the most important thing, I guess logistically, is after I finish here, the bar will be open upstairs. I hear there's a couple of interesting drinks that have been created. I'm looking forward to seeing them myself, but so they'll be upstairs, and there will be food served, I guess, back this way towards the kitchen. Is that right, John? Okay, thank you, sir. And safe travels home, and thank you so much. Nice to meet and see everybody, and I hope you have a lovely evening. Thank you.